Hello and welcome to Ask Amanda Now. This is our short Friday afternoon session where I can answer one Strata question for you. We're heading out live to the Your Strata Property Facebook page. We're going out to LinkedIn, out to YouTube. I am Amanda Farmer, the Strata lawyer. I'm here each Friday. Some weeks we do a longer Friday live session, other weeks a shorter Ask Amanda Now, with the aim always of helping you live more peacefully in your strata properties. So if you're coming on in live, I always love for you to give me a hello. I'm already seeing some eyes there. I know a few of you were hanging out waiting for me to be here live today, wondering perhaps if you are going to get your strata question answered. I've had a handful of questions here on the page, many more questions in my inbox after my email that went out this afternoon, but I have chosen one. I always choose a question that I think will help the most number of people, as general as we can make it, while still delving into those technicalities of often our strata legislation. Hey, Leonie, nice to see you here. Welcome to Ask Amanda Now. I have had my head deep in client work today, and even though it's 4 o'clock on a Friday, I'm going to be heading back there to finish a few things off. So we're going to be keeping it short today. Our question is actually a bit of a merger of two questions. Two of you have shown interest in the same topic, so I'm going to address it from both angles today. Our question, please, Rochelle. Bring it up on our screen here. It's a question from Bill and Ben, and also Jeff chimed in on this one. Bill and Ben being a Facebook pseudonym, if you're wondering where that name has come from. Here's the question: is the veto clause the best kept secret in Strata? Or is it just too hard to use to be of any consequence? And in Bill and Ben's post on the page, that's where this question appeared. Bill and Ben did put the relevant section of the New South Wales legislation that was being referred to. It is in Schedule 2 to our New South Wales Strata Schemes Management Act. And I'm going to tell you what this magical veto clause is. Jeff also chimed in on this one and asked, can you tell us if this also applies to community associations and decisions that are being made by community committees, association committees, we call them? So I'm going to answer that question, both for Bill and Ben and for Jeff here today. Bill and Ben saying, such a good question. If you do so, say so yourself, Bill and Ben. I thought it was a good one too, because yes, this does come up when often when I'm acting for owners who are unhappy with the way things are going in their communities, let's say. Very recently, I have been involved in some fairly drawn out, hard fought litigation, which has not ended yet. So I won't give you too many details about that. But certainly in that case, my clients very successfully used this veto clause in that situation, specifically from the Strata legislation, and turned out to be quite helpful in the long run. So what are we all talking about here? Well, there is a little known, I agree with Bill and Ben that it's little known, and it is could be one of Strata's best kept secrets, as Bill and Ben called it earlier. There is a clause in Schedule 2 to our Strata Schemes Management Act. Rochelle has the link to the schedule here for you. And it says this: a decision of a strata committee has no force or effect if, before the decision is made, notice is given to the secretary of the owners' corporation by one or more owners, the sum of whose unit entitlements exceed 1/3 of the aggregate, that the making of the decision is opposed by those owners. So if there's a group of owners who hold at least 1/3 of the total unit entitlement and they don't like what the strata committee is about to decide to do or not to do, a decision that the strata committee is about to make, they can send a notice to the secretary of the owners corporation and say, we say you can't make that decision. The strata committee then even if they make the decision, it has no force or effect. So when I've used this power in the past with groups of owners, the Strata Committee has received the notice saying that this group of owners opposes the decision being made. And then the Strata Committee ends up making a minute in their meeting. And I'm going to come to meetings. I know what you're all jumping up and down about. I'm going to come to meetings. Their minute is that they didn't consider the motion because they had received this opposition notice. Now, you can only send in this opposition notice, A, if you have 1/3 of the unit entitlement supporting you, but B, you have to know that the Strata Committee is about to make a decision that you want to oppose, that you're not happy about, that you don't want the Strata Committee to make. How do you know when the Strata Committee is going to make a decision? Well, you only know that if your committee is having formal committee meetings and is sending out notices of committee meeting. In New South Wales, we have to give 3 days notice before a committee meeting. That notice either goes up on the notice board or it is sent out to all owners, depending on what size building you live in and whether you've got a notice board. But if that doesn't happen, if the committee is not making decisions in formal meeting, it's not having any meetings at all, is not sending out notice 3 days before they hold their meetings, then owners don't know if decisions are going to be made and they can't exercise this right of veto or this send in one of these opposition notices. And that's what I see the biggest frustration is for owners who do want to oppose certain decisions being made. They can't exercise this right because they don't know that a decision is going to be made. And that perhaps, Bill and Ben, is why you said in your earlier post that while this seems to be a very powerful clause, and maybe it is one of the best kept secrets in Strata, is it really of any consequence? It's only going to work in those communities where Strata committees are publicly having meetings and owners are aware of decisions that are about to be made. To answer Jeff's question, yes, exactly the same. Identical. There is an identical provision in the schedule. It is Schedule 2 to our Community Land Management Act 2021 in New South Wales. Almost exactly the same words. The decision of an association committee has no force or effect if, before the decision is made, notice is given to the secretary of the association by one or more owners of relevant lots, is the wording in the section, lots in the community scheme, I imagine, the sum of whose unit entitlements exceeds 1/3 of the total unit entitlements. The notice is that the making of the decision is opposed by those owners. And I'm just, maybe I misspoke earlier. I just want to make very clear here. It's actually that the sum of the unit entitlements has to exceed 1/3. I might have said you have to have at least 1/3. You actually have to have more than 1/3 of the total unit entitlement to be able to exercise this power of veto or issue one of these opposition notices. What happens when you issue one of these opposition notices? If you've got a Strata committee who is receiving that notice, who's going to comply with it. In my experience, where I have issued those notices on behalf of clients, the Strata committee has then held their meeting, they've got to the motion and they've said this motion will not be considered because we have received one of these notices, we cannot consider it. What does that mean for the item to be discussed? Let's say the item was to spend money, to spend $10,000 on doing some plumbing work. Maybe the item was to engage a lawyer. Maybe the item was to issue a bylaw breach notice. If more than 1/3, if owners holding more than 1/3 of the total unit entitlement have sent in their opposition notice and the committee can't consider that issue, then it can only be considered and determined by the general meeting. It's an issue that then gets bumped up to that level of general meeting. And that is what the committee should do. Say, okay, we've been told that the owners don't want us to make a decision on this issue. We're going to take this now to the general meeting so the general meeting can make a decision on this issue. And you might find, depending on the community, that something that would have been approved at a Strata committee meeting will not be approved at a general meeting because you have the voice of all owners being able to be heard at a general meeting. Scrolling back up here to see any comments that have come in. Bill and Ben said, nice translation into English. I'm often doing that. I think I said that on the podcast a couple of weeks ago. I read something out of the legislation and then I caught myself and said, I'll now say that like a human being. Some things I find are expressed backwards in our Strata Schemes Management Act. So you generally will, I hope, get the translation from me. Leonie's saying, what happens in a two-lot scheme? Yeah, so Leonie, in a two-lot scheme, you're both members of the committee. Is that how it works? I think that's in our legislation that you both end up being members of the committee. Um, one owner, I suppose, has more than, generally speaking, hopefully in a two-lot scheme, has more than 1/3 of the unit entitlement and can issue an opposition notice. Um, but you may have heard me, since you posted that comment, heard me say, well, what happens next? How does the decision then get made? Well, it goes to a general meeting. And if you're in a two-lot scheme, you're going to end up with the same stalemate, I imagine, on a particular issue, even if you've used this veto power to bump it up to the level of the general meeting. So yeah, I think you're saying that you've got equal unit entitlement. If you've got equal unit entitlement, then it probably doesn't matter whether you use this power or not. If you disagree with your neighbor, then you're going to be in a painful position. So not sure that this one works for you in a two-lot scheme. Jeff is here. Hey, Jeff, how you going? Saying well spoken. Any further questions on that process in community schemes, Jeff, let me know. And thank you for your question. We're finding that more and more our community schemes legislation is falling into line with our strata schemes legislation, helpfully, no doubt helpfully for our strata managers as well, trying to remember all this stuff. But wherever possible, we're seeing identical provisions inserted into our Community Land Management Act as we have in our Strata Schemes Management Act, and more so with our new reforms that are going to be coming into effect shortly in New South Wales. All right, that's all I got for you today. I'm going to head back to my client work and eventually on our Friday afternoon, finish up and enjoy my weekend, as I hope you will too. If you had questions, I know many of you had questions. I can see them here on the page. I can see them in my inbox. The best place to go to get them answered is inside the Your Strata Property online membership community. There you have access to me in our Q&A forum. I was in there this morning. I think I've answered about 17 questions in there this morning in writing for you, dealing with your specific strata problem. You can find out more and join us on the inside over at stratamembership.com. Have a lovely weekend in Strata, everyone. I'll catch you all next time. Bye for now.